Going viral can be a great thing if you go viral for the right thing. It's a balance. I can be entertaining in something I would naturally create for free forever because I love it. Don't go viral for a gimmick because then you're pigeonholed into that and you can't repeat it. The biggest fear is, what if all my friends and family and high school colleagues on Facebook and Instagram think I'm an idiot? We have all been there. It's part of it. Just put it out there.
Welcome to Marketing Stuff. I'm excited for today's show. We have another amazing guest today. If this is your first time coming to the show, thank you so much for dropping in. If you're returning, I appreciate your continued support and welcome back into the family. We're here to help you level up your marketing game in a way where you do not have to feel like you're drowning in all of this extra. Before we jump into today's show, make sure you hit the subscribe button so you get all the notifications about the nuggets that we're dropping. But let's get on and talk to this guest that we have. I had the pleasure of meeting this gentleman in December when we both were at a marketing conference, Marketing 2.0, to get some awards and talk about what we think is the next wave of creation. But our guest is the founder of Drafter, a publishing platform for the creator economy that gives freelancers the tools they need to make their business happen. He's also the owner of King Sports Strength and Conditioning, a platform that makes strength and conditioning simple for coaches and parents. And he makes some killer video content for businesses, like just epic stuff. Aaron, thanks so much for joining me today on the show. I appreciate it.
Thanks for that intro. I appreciate it.
Yeah,
good
man.
to be here.
It's good to have you. I love the Drafter background, by the way. I'm like, man,
thanks. Yeah.
You gotta give me
it's a little wide. It doesn't fit into the vertical frame, but it's a little flare.
I gotta get me one. So let's give some folks some context. So you went to the University of Texas at El Paso. You were a football rock star and you did the NFL Combine, right? Mm-hmm. So talk to us a little bit about that and how you went from I'm gonna go to the NFL to now I'm doing video.
It wasn't planned necessarily. It just was a part of the journey. I grew up. My dad was a strength and conditioning coach, and so that's part of why the King Sports thing exists. And so I grew up just knowing the professional sports world, but also just being exposed to the entrepreneurial world because my dad was working with all these teams, the Dallas Mavericks, the Dallas Cowboys, FC Dallas Soccer Club, and then the Olympics for the push. He's a push coach for the skeleton team in the 2002 Olympics. So he's got 3 Super Bowls, 2 gold medals, as a coach, and published with the NBA. So I grew up in this environment of elite training and being around NFL and NBA athletes, but then also he had a gym. And so I know what it's like to have to, wake up early to open your gym, sweeping the floors, doing the towels, folding, laundry and stuff when you're a gym owner at a smaller business, and understanding the flexibility, but also the demand of being cursed with this entrepreneur gene, which my brothers, one of them kind of has it, the other one doesn't. You're born with it or you're not. And so it just kind of evolved, sports was a part of it. And then when I came out of playing, we started a little curriculum business that essentially kind of turned into King Sports. But, I hired an agency to help launch some equipment stuff, and they just couldn't quite deliver on what I felt was the way it needed to be communicated. Right. Because they weren't domain experts. They could use a camera, but they didn't know how to edit. They didn't know what we were trying to demonstrate from an instructional standpoint. So I started getting my chops, in editing, and then was like, man, we're paying this agency all this money. I'm just going to go build my own team and start my own agency. And then that way I can service my ideas. Then I ended up in the agency business, more so than the products. And we're trying to bring it back full circle, but that's essentially
I feel like that ends up being most entrepreneur stories. I was actually doing this other thing, and then that forced me to do this thing, and then this thing became the thing. My mentor talks about that. Actually, we were on a call the other day, and he's like, just so you know, the thing that we're doing today might just be the thing to build the thing that you do forever, right? Yeah. So don't get too attached to an idea. So it's interesting having you talk about I actually got here because I was trying to communicate something for a different business and found that I was really good at this, right?
You find your skill set by doing all that and like find out what you're good at. Yeah.
Let's actually dive into that too. I think sometimes as entrepreneurs, like you get the, you have to be, what do they say? You need to niche down. Like you need to pick a thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, most of us are multi-passionates. Like we don't pick things. We like, I see this thing over here and it's actually, I have fun doing this. So I'm going to go do this. And it's not until you're later on in your entrepreneurial career that you realize like, oh, all those little things that I was doing is like, got me here. Right. Like right before you and I jumped on, I was wrapping up, just finished a contract with, one of the state agencies and, well, I guess now I'm done. I can talk about it. We did a contract for the Iowa Department of Aging. And it was about customer experience, right? And so a few years ago, I went on this big binge of like reading and learning and doing all this stuff around customer experience. And they called me, and this is a 5-figure contract. And if I hadn't done that, then I wouldn't have been able to like execute on this contract. And as we were executing on this contract, this like web privacy stuff came up, and this ADA compliance stuff came up, and this web performance stuff came up, which is like the SEO and all these other things that I ended up doing years ago. And so now, I was able to execute on this really weird contract that, all these different experiences, bringing in insurance and all this stuff to be able to present them this report. But it comes from this multi-passionate. So how do you balance that, right? Like, I'm sure you still have things like, ooh, that looks really exciting, and I want to try that, but you have to like taper that with like, I got a business that I'm running.
It's funny. There's two things that immediately come to mind. And one of them is something we all deal with, which is just dopamine rushes, like with social media and things like that. And I think of everything from a physiological standpoint first. So if I'm not creative one day, it's not because I don't have the ideas. It's, did I sleep? How's the stress levels? Did I exercise enough this week? What am I eating? So I always try to take care of the physical side first. And so if I'm having a hard time wanting to chase the new shiny object, which we're all ADD, like every entrepreneur is basically has ADD, some sort of attention deficit. Like it's just how we're wired. That's why we can't be employed. We have to start our own business. And so especially me being a content creator, like I have to be careful with those notifications. Like if a video is popping off, I have two different phones. I have the phone I carry around every day, and then I have a beat up like 5-year-old iPhone with a shattered screen. And so I'll delete social media off my main phone. Yeah, you got to have the double. Yeah, and I'll take everything and put it on that phone that wants to cut my fingers because I didn't even replace the glass. And I'm like, that's my new social media phone. Stay off it. Like isolate. Reduce the dopamine, because the more that you're getting hit with all those little notifications and checking it to see what's changed in the last 30 seconds, which nothing, it's just a response to trigger. If I'm able to minimize all those little dopamine hits, then I can focus a little better, and I can stay task at hand and be a little bit more task oriented. And then the other thing is operationally focused and making sure that we're constantly looking at our systems, our offerings, and not, layering in some new custom solution that a client came in and requested, or that, their team functions a certain way and they're starting to dictate how your team has to function. And so we're really organized, and I try to think of it from, if you're in the service business, like I try hard, like I'm constantly pushing us towards products. And that's physical products, that's packaged and digital products. Even on the services side, it's not saying we want to be your agency of record where we're going to just kind of be your in-house marketing team, which is fine. That's not what we're trying to do, but we've done it a lot. I just have found we are better suited when we have a set package of deliverables that essentially becomes a product. Even though it's a service, it's productized in the sense of how it's delivered, priced, and sold. And so you can get a system in place. When you're this ADD founder who has a million ideas, if you can focus on the systems and operations, then you're able to get that working, put in the right team, deliver on all the promises, and execute at a high level. And you can start chasing things one at a time. Yeah. But you can't you can't keep starting new things. And so I like to get something operationalized and then start thinking about the next thing. And then of course, I like to write ideas like in a notebook and revisit it from time to time. And if it's still a good idea a week later, I put a check next to it. And if it's got enough check boxes where I'm like, okay, a couple of weeks later, I still like that idea, then I can keep thinking about it. Some of them I'm like, that was a dumb idea, and I just delete it, So you got to like let things go through a cycle.
No, absolutely. I haven't tried that. I think I'm going to have to try the check thing because there's definitely some ideas that I've allowed to that dopamine hit to be like, we're going to do this. And what we talk about, like I was doing something the other day. I was talking about the curse of knowledge stopping you from being able to communicate. But I think also like the curse of knowledge allows you to do stupid things faster, right? Like, because I know, like if I wanted to, I could start a new business right now as far as like legally, because I have the knowledge. So there's no barrier for me. So I've done some stuff that was just dumb. And I look back, I was like, man, that was a stupid idea. And I'm only like 3 weeks in. Like, we're going to kill this. It was a waste of my time and money, but we're going to kill it now before it takes on a life that's just ridiculous.
When you're young, you're naive and ignorance is bliss. So you can, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, you can go after the worst idea with 100%, just try to muscle it through. Yeah. But yeah, when you have the curse of knowledge, even if it's a decent idea that would be better than something maybe in your 20s, if you're in your 30s now, it's like, well, this idea is better and more refined than some of the dumb ideas I went after. But now you understand the operational challenges, the bandwidth, the mental strain, strain on your body and mind and relationships. So yeah, you're a little bit more selective. But you also know that whatever you put your mind to will probably work to a degree.
Yep. The idea of like getting a business to 6 figures now is like, okay, I can do that. Right. Alex Ramsey talks about the 1-1-1 thing. Like, it's like, getting a business to 6 figures at this point is like, oh yeah, okay, I should be fine. I can do that. I can do that pretty easily as long as the offer and the audience align, right? There should be very minimal resistance to do that, but it does come with being selective. But the reason why we're here is to talk about videos, right? So let's get into. So we kind of got into how you got into it, right? It wasn't on purpose. It was kind of like accidental, which I think is even more important here, because I think sometimes as entrepreneurs and marketing professionals, we look at like video and we're like, oh my God, how do I tackle that, right? So if somebody were trying to learn video, right, and get into video, not necessarily to start an agency, but to be effective with video, how would you coach them to go about, that process?
Man, it starts with the story. Everything is content. Comes down, when I say content, it's like the contents of your content. It's the story is going to be the thing that drives the success or failures before you get into equipment and production. Like you and I could sit here with these nice mics and high quality cameras, and if we don't say anything meaningful, then it doesn't matter. But if you and I were on walkie talkies that didn't sound great, but I could understand, if we were dropping knowledge bombs, and people would want to listen to it. And so when you're making content, it doesn't have to be overly produced. That can matter. That has a place. And I produce my content at a high level, but then I strip it out. So there's if you're going to like cook and you have seasoning, you have meat, you have potatoes, salt, all this stuff, mixing it in and having the right recipe is the difference between wanting to eat it or not. And so if you look at like motion graphics is a seasoning, if you put way too much salt in your food, and then it's not going to taste good. And sometimes it's like, let that meat, that steak, that high quality piece of meat, like don't put sauce on it. Don't let the steak be the star. Sometimes a piece of content, it's like, we don't need extra music. We don't need extra graphics. Like just let that moment, that authentic feeling that's being conveyed by whoever's on the camera, let that shine. And so it's finding that story and that message. And a lot of times it's a founder who is very, very passionate about what they do for all the right reasons. And it's like, listen, I don't want to put you on camera and tell you what to say in this marketing like PSA format, what I want to do is capture your enthusiasm because it's contagious. And so for me, it's in the early stages, it's about getting people comfortable on camera.
Right.
Because like so many people feel that camera gets on them and then they feel it. So just being comfortable in front of the camera, and instead of talking to the camera like I'm talking to an audience, talk to your best friend, and you have to be able to capture that same type of FaceTime energy. If it's like you're calling your mom or your dad or your best friend and you're like, yo, listen to what just happened today. Oh my God, I'm so excited. We got this new project done. And then you get on a business call and it's like, so at our business, we do these things, and they get robotic. It's like, if you can capture that excitement, it's like, yeah, I want to work with that person. They're passionate about what they do. And in filmmaking, there's a term called the fourth wall. And it's where you feel like you're just there. Like if I'm in a movie, someone's terrified, there's a monster coming. And if they looked over at the cameraman, it's like, well, it's not as scary because someone's with them. But that fourth wall is like, well, we're watching this person as if they don't know we're there. It's real. It feels like, oh my gosh, this person's isolated. So that fourth wall is something that like I try to capture in my content, where I just take people on these adventures and it's like they're just there, like it's a movie. If you can get to that level of comfort where the camera becomes a friend or becomes not there from like an audience standpoint, those are things I try to get to. And then that gets into like a comfort level, but then everything else going back into like that level of comfort and message and storytelling is just getting on there and structuring your thoughts a little bit. And I have a whole process of like short form content, how we structure like a script and like content. That doesn't have to be crazy. It can just be you talking to an iPhone. And so it's being authentic. Right. That's the main thing.
So I don't want you to give away the secret sauce, but how do you go about planning your videos? Like if you were talking to a friend right now and they're like, I need to plan a video or plan a set of videos for the month. How would you suggest they go about planning the videos?
When it comes to like really planning and from a business standpoint, there is a structure we have. Now there's, I would say basically 3 forms of content that I find myself regularly making. Mm-hmm. First one, like my content is very documentary style. There's like 2 parts to that. There's part 1 where like in my personal like accounts, I just do very moody moments in adventure, essentially taking you with me. I don't script any of that. I just let the cinematography do the work and then find a song. So I start with music and I'm like, okay, I love this song. I want to make essentially a music video, if you will, but not really. That song would pair well in a rainy scene in the mountains. Okay. Like I can just feel it. And so that's how my content works for documentary style clients, where we do a lot of storytelling. We just identify a persona. And for this one client that I love using as an analogy all the time, because they're like just one of the most rewarding projects, it's called List the Nickel Feeds. And we just interview 100-year-old cowboys and capture these stories before they're gone and just let them talk. And it's just a documentary hangout with an old timer. That's like all it is. And so we don't structure a lot of the content other than like, we're going to ask them a few questions about the depression, and we take notes from interview to interview and get cross-reference. Right. So it's like just being organized of like, well, this guy over here said this. What was your experience with that back in 1932? And they're like, oh, the government was doing, and they can tell a story that lines up and it's cool. So we're just organized, but we just do interviews. And then the third one, which you're really asking about, is basically take 2 or 3 personas, these avatars that you're speaking to. And so I'll give you an analogy with our sports training. We just did this the other day. We filmed a bunch of shorts. We speak to parents, coaches, and athletes. I know those 3 people. Yep. And then you get those avatars. And then if I'm doing a spreadsheet, and in the next column, I'm going to write out topics. And for the sports training, it can be like, let's say warming up, just stretching, right? Well, how do I warm up? Well, let's talk about a jog warm up. We're going to jog. Okay. Well, I'm going to make a jogging warm up video. I'm going to talk to a parent, a coach, and an athlete. So I'm going to make that same video 3 different times, talking to 3 different people. Okay. And so now I have to have my hook. Now the hook is, what is that opening line? And the way that we would structure the actual script of the video, I want to get my avatar, like the audience, the parent, coach, or athlete, and then I want to nail down the specific niche. So like if I'm making a video, I'm like, are you a coach that's training an athlete in speed training? Like I want to hit those things, because if I was not specific enough and I said, are your kids not paying attention? Well, am I talking about classroom? Am I talking about feeding breakfast? Am I talking about what's the topic? So you got to get specific. So it's like, are your athletes not warming up before your workouts? Okay, now I know exactly who I'm talking to and who I'm not. So algorithms can figure that out really quickly. So like, I'm going to engage these people. These other people are going to keep scrolling, which is fine. They're not my customer. You get that hook, and then you structure the meat of the video, essentially. So we want to have like what we call a cue. And so we have all our we all have terminology in our expertise in areas that we like to use. A phrase in like sports training could be, low is slow. If you're running slow, you're low, you're slow. We want to run tall. So we could be like, well, athletes, they always low is slow. Well, what do I mean by that? I want to talk about the spine. And so you can have a cue or a reference point. Then you explain what it means, and then you give them practical application. So we want to run tall. Now, how do we do that? Well, there's 5 drills. When are we going to do these drills? We're going to do about twice a week. So now I'm giving you a lot of value. I'm explaining what I mean. I'm showing you my expertise. And that's something that can live in a short form video where I can explain that really quickly, but then you're getting a complete video. So this goes beyond clipping up a podcast, beyond, clipping up a documentary, because sometimes those clips can be great, but they don't always finish. Like you don't have that resolution you want in a complete standalone video. So we structure it where it's, you get your avatar, you get your topics, and you get your hooks with the meat of the content. And then you can scale that content, those ideas and that spreadsheet really, really far. Because when you start writing that same video script to 3 different avatars, and then you come up with different ideas, I could make you, if I'm talking about warming up in speed training and sports, I could make 100 videos about just warming up based on those ideas. What do I do on a cold day? What kind of shoes do I wear? Do I go inside or do I go outside? Should I do foam rolling? Should I do active stretch or static stretch when I warm up? I mean, you in this is just an analogy for sports, but you can do that in podcasting. You can do that in, if I'm giving medical advice. Like the mundane stuff is not mundane to a lot of people. And so we basically will just go through there and spitball a bunch of ideas and make sure the hooks are hitting that, making sure that it's something that the right person is going to stop scrolling on, and then structure it in a way that we explain what we mean.
Sounds good. That's really good stuff. I think you hit something there when you said the mundane. When you talked about the mundane, right? I think as business owners, sometimes when we're doing the thing all the time, we forget how people are blown away, right? Like I did a live a month ago where I just turned my phone around while I was editing audio. And somebody was like, oh my God, how'd you do that? I'm like, you mean cut the sound out?
Yeah.
They're like, well, yeah, what are you doing? I'm like, oh, Control Z to get to the 0 point and then turn the sound off in this point. And they're like, why are you doing that? Right. And I'm like, well, because I don't want the echo, right? Like I'm eliminating background noise. And they're like, oh, I never thought about doing it that way. And this is another person that's editing audio for somebody, right? So it's like the mundane thing that I was like, I'm just going to do this because I'm going to do this, turned out to be something that was genuinely helpful for someone. And it gets hard for us to honestly share the boring stuff, right? or the things that are just, again, going back to that curse of knowledge thing. It's like, well, everybody knows. Like you grew up around strength and conditioning. So it's like the idea of warming up is kind of like an everyday thing, right? So it can be challenging sometimes for us to step away from that. So when we're thinking about using video, and especially from a business standpoint, how can businesses use social media and video to market their business?
Man, there's so many ways. I mean, you and I, if you go to one of these conferences like we went to, and I talked to 3-4 people in a little group, that's that's networking. There's a potential customer, there's a potential partner, there's a potential just colleague, whatever. You're just doing that at scale with social media. You're putting content on LinkedIn, you're putting it out there, you're going to reach a new audience, and it's likely going to find people. If you can stay on topic, on task, it's likely going to find the right people. So you're not, it filters it out for you. But I think that if you can identify like just what is your objective with social media, you know, if you know what you want out of it, then you can make that content. You can justify a lot of the effort because it's definitely an investment of time, resources, like money. If you can't create it yourself, you're going to hire someone, and it's not cheap because the stuff is technical, the equipment's expensive. But if you know, like in your analogy, for example, where like the mundane stuff is boring to you, because like, you know, I don't listen to beginner photography tips or something. I listen to, you know, investor podcasts and really technical stuff. I want to know where AI is headed. I want to listen to very technical things. So all day we're spending time around really intelligent people, like virtually, like in podcasts. And so you feel stupid all the time. You know, I always feel like I'm the stupidest person with the headphones in the room, whatever, because I want to like listen to the smartest people. Well, there's a lot of people that are not in that same room, or they're not listening to the same podcast. They haven't heard all the things you have. So like you said, it's like everyone knows this. It's like, no, most people don't have the time. They have their own stresses, their own job, their family. They're not probably as obsessive as we might be on some of these topics.
Yeah.
And so you can you can definitely think that it's not interesting to other folks, but someone is at that intro stage. Cause like you said on the tutorial thing, I remember when I was trying to make music like 10 years ago when I first started getting into like editing, and I couldn't figure out why my guitar sounded so terrible. Cause I was like, I'm recording, what's going on? I had no idea that you needed a quality of mic. I was just using the mic on the laptop thinking it was going to sound like John Mayer or something, you know? I was like, why does it sound so bad? But that was me. Like I'm that guy. Now I got 20 mics laying around for different things. And back then I didn't know why something didn't. So somebody is at that stage. And if you know who you're trying to reach, you can start justifying it. Like if I'm an expert person and I'm sharing my expertise, am I trying to get new patients? If I'm something in medical or a personal trainer, like clients, do I just want to sound like a domain expert? Am I trying to go B2B? How technical do I want to be on something? So you just got to know, who am I targeting? And even if it is semi-beginner, it still can be meeting someone where they're at based on who the clientele is you're going. It could be recruiting. Like for Drafter, for our company, like we're going after freelancers. So our content's actually going to be all about the creator economy. How do you build money, like build a business, get clients, organize things, build certain types of pieces of content? Not because we want new customers, necessarily. Well, users and customers are kind of the same thing. But I mean, we're not trying to get clients for the agency so much as we're trying to empower other freelancers with our software. So you just have to know who you're trying to attract and why you're trying to attract them, and then just try to provide as much value as possible.
I love that. The fact that you were there. God, there are so many times. Actually, I was talking to a colleague of mine about planning out I'm going to give my secret sauce here, planning out their podcast questions. And I'm like, I actually coach my host, for those of you that don't know, I have a podcast production company, and I was coaching my host. I said, you need to look for some questions that have some SEO juice.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were like, well, what do you mean? And I'm like, what do you mean? What do I mean? They're like, I don't know what you mean. And so I started pulling up. I was like, this question right here, we can put this in the interview. And then that becomes something that we can highlight when we're recapping or doing any type of like blogging or clipping, right? Like these are things that have to be talked about before we actually go into the interview, because if you don't, then what you end up with is a conversation that's fantastic,
right?
But I can't necessarily drive traffic to it, right? And that becomes like, when you're Oprah, you can talk about whatever the hell you want.
Right, yeah.
Right? You can talk about cheese and you're going to get 1 million views.
Yep.
When you're not, you have to be a little bit more strategic in how you go about it, and looking for opportunities of how do I meet someone where they are in the content that I'm looking to create. So before you talked about your framework, right, of how you can go about, having an idea and then using your formula in order to create these videos, or at least script them out to a point of like, okay, now we have something. But how are you going about finding the best ideas when you're trying to create new content?
I'll start with, I just want to talk to whoever's going to be like the talent or the client or whoever. But then it's basically like what you just said. It's essentially keyword research and understanding. I start with YouTube. Like that's where everything I do originated from getting into SEO. Back in the day when I launched my company, we were like all about organic traffic. And it was a few years after Google acquired YouTube. And so I was like, video's the future. This is back in like 2011. I think they acquired them in like 2008 or 9 or something. And I was like starting my company like end of 2010, 11. And so I just studied the hell out of YouTube, what was working, and just went off after non-competitive from like a PPC standpoint, like paid ads. I went after non-competitive keywords where I could own like volume. And so created a few videos and was driving like 75,000 uniques a month to a couple landing pages just off of these YouTube videos of like organizing this is for the sports videos. Just said, okay, well, no one's bidding on these because there's no product, but we're selling information. Like, so like I don't need to compete. It was perfect. And get them into a funnel, into a newsletter, and then keep them in your information. Once you get them in there and start just giving them value, they don't go anywhere. But it does start with a lot of keyword research, and now with like the future's here. But if you can get into Chat GPT and start asking it questions on what your topic should be, it'll save you a lot of time.
Man,
I'm coming up with ideas.
Listen, I'm telling you, I've been in Chat GPT a lot this last month because, and we could have a whole nother conversation about AI, but this idea of using it as a creative jumping point.
Yeah.
Because the hardest thing to do with all this stuff is like distill down what you know into something that is digestible enough for you to take action on it. Right. Mm-hmm. Like I think about like even some of the experiences that I've had, right? Like if somebody were to ask me about ADA compliance on a website, I could talk about it. Mm-hmm. But if you were to ask me to create a video about ADA compliance, right. I'm like, I don't know. Right. Yeah. Like what do you want? What do you want to know? Right. Like, so it's sometimes just getting those like jump off points and like having a place to start and saying like, oh, these are the 10 questions people are asking. I can answer mm-hmm. these. Right. Like these are simple questions. And it's like, well, these are the 10 most asked questions across the internet that equal up to 150,000, opportunities for you to get eyeballs on your stuff. And so I love that you're saying that it comes from a place of keyword research, and then using Chat GPT to accelerate that point. And if for anybody listening, if you don't know what Chat GPT is, my recommendation would be, number one, just Google it. I'll put the link for the thing in the show notes so you can go directly there. And as far as how to use it, you just got to play with it, right? I think there's some courses that people are starting to put out, but the real answer is just play with it. Like don't be afraid of it. So when we're talking about like this idea of using Chat GPT and, how to kind of figure out, the keyword research, I think that takes us into the next question really well. What do you think are going to be like the top 5 video marketing trends for 2023?
Well, I think we're going to have there's going to be a movement around intellectual services, because intellectual, like IP, just expertise and stuff is slowly getting more and more commoditized. Mm-hmm. For example, I'm a decent storyteller. It's kind of what my profession is, but I'm not a good copywriter in the sense of like I can tell you what I'm trying to convey as a message, but I'm not a wordsmith. Okay. And so like that was something high on my list of things where I'm like, I need a copywriter. I need to get my LinkedIn game up. My captions need to be more like, I need to be able to convey what I'm trying to say in words, but I usually do a short caption because it's just not my strength and I just don't like it. Well, with AI, like using Jasper, using ChatGPT, yo, I'm a pretty good copywriter all of a sudden, you know, like I still have a copywriter, but if I wanted to do it myself all day, every day, if I was more of a solopreneur, I could handle it because I can say, hey, rewrite this, or here's what I'm trying to say, write a 500 word post or whatever. And I'm not saying copy and paste it, although you could. I mean, people have done it, I should say. You can pick up a few phrases where it's like, oh, I like that word. Or I like, you know, you can start rewriting your own stuff. And so I've been using that a lot to find new ways to write a personal bio, or, you know, write a caption, and or a warm email, you know, or a cold email, I should say. So I think there's going to be a little bit of a commoditization of expertise in certain skills. So that's a big thing coming. It's going to open up a lot of opportunity in the creator economy. It's not just going to replace jobs. I think it's like anything else, like automation does remove some jobs, but also creates new ones. You know, it gives people an opportunity to hop into something they might not have it would otherwise be too big of a gap. So I think that's going to be a big thing. This is where drafters, this is what we're betting on. This is what I think it's going on but I think the creator economy is not going to just be this creator's world, but the gig economy within the creator economy is going to be growing. And that's why we're building creator tools to say, hey, you might be a creator in the sense of you make videos, but you don't have a following. You don't aspire to have a following, but you love to edit. You love to write. You love to manage. So I think content teams at big and small businesses, and even creators themselves, like I have a team that helps me with my content, you know, like VAs and things like that. I know other massive creators that have a whole operation. And so I think we're trying to build out that ecosystem for creator teams or content teams to be able to be put together and give people an opportunity to make a living in the gig economy within the creator economy. So I think that's another thing. So AI is going to commoditize a lot of expertise, and then there's going to be a lot of opportunities for freelancers in the creator economy. And then we're also seeing more of a move towards entertainment versus social media. So TikTok is an entertainment platform. It's not a social media. And so you're going to see a movement away from, like, you're seeing Netflix specials and stuff like that. Like, it's getting more and more to like social media is becoming the entertainment platforms. And so if you think of it that way, going viral can be a great thing if you go viral for the right thing. So you want to be entertaining with something. It's a balance. I can be entertaining in something I would naturally create for free forever because I love it. Don't go viral for a gimmick, because then you're pigeonholed into that and you can't repeat it. People are going to think more like production companies, and, you know, brands are going to be born out of these followings from the creators. And then you're going to start having faces of brands. You know, the people are going to be personalities on behalf of brands. It's like the Allstate commercials have their characters flow from Progressive. You have all these people that are the face of the commercials. And so that's another opportunity that's coming with social media and for brands, because they want to connect with the person, not a logo. So Absolutely. Anyway, I that was a lot of words to answer your, like, what, 2 or 3 trends. I don't know. This is all the stuff that's on my mind.
No, that was great, man. I said 5. It's interesting, right? Because you and I kind of come at it from a different approach, but I think we're betting on the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. Like content creation at scale is
exactly
a challenging thing for small business owners, and more as business owners see that while TikTok is an interesting place, because there's a lot of businesses that are like, I don't want to go on there, my customer's not there. And I'm like, maybe
they are, though.
If you had said that 3 years ago, I would have been on board. But post COVID, bruh, they're there, right? But even if TikTok is not the platform, right? Because we know social media platforms come and go, the environment that it creates is not going anywhere. So for, you saying that it is not a social media, but it is a entertainment platform, I'm also seeing something interesting on it too. And this is just a personal anecdote, so I'm not gonna say that this is the trend for 2023. I see a lot of people getting really tired of 15-second clips. Mm-hmm. There's an article I read about short form fatigue. So I think we're going to see that more in 2023, People just being like, could you have just made that a 45-second clip instead of make it in a 3-part 15-second clip, right? And then because we're seeing more entertainment, I think there's going to be more of a drive for communities for different, I guess we can call them niches, but I wouldn't necessarily, I don't think these communities are going to consider themselves niches, right? Like, before there was a time period where you kind of bucket everybody into big groups, but I think now there's going to be these like little micro groups of people that can surround around this content that then becomes their own community. I guess I won't be a closet fan anymore. I like anime, right? But I'm also a business person. And so like, I don't necessarily want to hang out with every person that likes anime. Right. But if there was a group of CEOs that also liked anime, that love podcasting, and we kind of got together and that's what we talked about, I think that'd be the perfect group for me. Right. Yeah. And that's a micro group. Right? That's a microcosm. There's probably, 10,000 people collectively that would say, I'm a CEO. I like anime. I also like podcasting, and I'm a big psychology nerd, right? But I think we're going to see a rise of things like that. But I think video is going to be the gateway into people finding these communities. So
yeah, it's all connection, man. And I look at the interesting as like subject matter, because I had a really hard time with that as well. And other people, like my dad, for example, where I have him like doing all the content for our sports stuff because he's the expert. He loves cooking on that green egg. But where does barbecuing fit with speed training? Well, it just turns into a fun thing in his Instagram stories, you know, where he's like cooking out for the game because all his athletes he train, so it becomes part of your brand, and subject matter. Like for me, I'm not a photographer as far as like, I don't offer that service, but I'm known as a photographer online, and people want to know which camera to buy from me. And I'm like, dude, that's not there's other people that are experts in that. I can teach beginners some stuff. But I love photography. I'm passionate about it. I love it. I'm just not like the professional that some of these other people are. Yeah. But it becomes the subject matter in the content. Like my videos are about filmmaking, but I'm filmmaking about a photographer who and I'm showing photo. So it's connected, and you'll find a niche to a degree. It's like you're not trying to make, for example, I'm not trying to make the next professional photographer, but I'm trying to get people to go on an adventure and capture it as best they can. So that's novice. I can help that person all day. Just take a little bit better photos. I'm not trying to train this person how to book their next $10,000 shoot. That's not my world. I'm not, what I'm saying? Like there's still niches within niches. And so, just subject matter for your interests,
Absolutely. So if somebody listening to the show could only take away one thing from today, what would that one thing be?
Do not be scared to start creating content. We're on some marketing show and people are apprehensive. You get on, when I said social media versus entertainment platforms, the biggest fear is, what if all my friends and family and high school colleagues on Facebook and Instagram think I'm an idiot? It's embarrassing in the beginning. We're all embarrassed of what people think. TikTok is a good platform to start because not everyone's on it. It's like, when I say it's not social media, it's entertainment. That means you can post the same thing over and over, and whether it's good or bad content, not everyone will have seen it. Whereas Instagram, if I post the same thing twice, I'll be like, dude, you already posted that, because they're paying attention to me because they're my friends and community. On TikTok, it's an algorithm that's going to push it out to the world. So you can start on a platform like a TikTok and put it out there, get your groove, because you will learn so much through doing. Don't be scared. Just start publishing. And what will happen is you will start getting some sort of traction, a rhythm, and it'll start making sense to you, your customers, your friends and family. And you'll find ultimately they see you're hustling, they see why you're doing it, and they will end up being supportive. And if they're not, well, guess what? It will attract the right people that will be supportive. And so just be who you are, be authentic, put it out there, and relentlessly pursue improvement on that craft, and it'll work out. But I just know so many people are apprehensive and scared because of what people will think. We've all been there, even me. Like I still don't, to a degree, post the same TikToks. I don't repost them all on Instagram because I'm like, that's a TikTok video. So it happens to all of it. And listen, man, I got a lot of followers on these platforms, and I'm still dealing with that. Like I'll have a video that gets like 1 million views on TikTok, and I still am like, but do I want to post that for my high school buddies? Like I don't really deal with it as much anymore, but I'm just saying we have all been there. It's part of it. Just put it out there, get started, and you'll feel better in the end.
I was going to wrap it up on that one, but you said I post a video that gets 1 million views. So how would you suggest somebody go how to create a viral video on TikTok in 2023?
Well, that's part of it is just starting. Like you gotta start posting stuff and see what people engage with. So I can tell you like 2 different types of videos that will do well on our sports channel, for example. If we talk about how squatting affects sprinting, and if we post drill explanations, those videos do well. Other stuff, we know it will not do as well, but it's for our customers. So like we're trying to reach a new audience. I know it's going to get the views. On my personal channel, I posted a video the other day where I did one, it got like 200,000 views. So like just to give you data so people understand where I was at like 30, 40,000 followers on TikTok. And this video got like 200-something thousand views. So it went pretty viral for me. I posted another video similar to it, made some modifications I was like, if I added this little thing in the beginning, there's no words in these videos. These are just I'm doing a scene essentially. The next video I added a little bit in the intro to like what I thought would hook people in as far as curiosity. I'm like doing this chair thing. And to me, it's like curious, like what is that chair? That video got 35 million views. It went very viral. So now my account is at, it popped off a little bit. And so now my account's about 600,000 followers. And I reposted that same original video that got 200,000 views. I was like, okay, this video is probably going to get between 500,000 and 1 million. I just knew that based on what was happening. And now it's at like 1.1 or 1.2 million. And I posted it a few days ago. Whereas other videos, I just know, I'm like, this video might do like 10,000. This video is not going to do anything, but like it's for certain people. You just start learning that by posting. And so you have to put stuff out there. And I've completely cut out other videos now because I'm like, those didn't work. And I didn't like making them. So perfect. I'm just not going to do this. I'm only going to do these. And so I only know that because I posted almost every day for about a year. I made a lot of content, and you just gotta learn what works. And there's best practices I can get you further down the road, like out the gate. Yeah. But you gotta practice and see what works. And if you feel like it's authentic to who you are, then you're onto something.
We appreciate you sharing that. So how can people connect with you?
Deep Snap on social media. I'm Deep Snap everywhere. Okay. Deepsnap.com is getting up and running on our new Drafter website builder. We're adding some content there, and then Deep Snap on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube.
Well, there you go. I'll put the links to his social profiles in the show notes. So if you want to connect with him, feel free. Check out some of those videos that's getting, several million views. Maybe you can see what the formula is and he can help you out.
It won't make sense to you at all. You'll look at this and be like, this video?
Hey, but it's a format you can try, right?
Yeah.
Format you can try. So Aaron, I appreciate you sharing your knowledge about video creation and content creation and helping our listeners out. That is a wrap of this episode of Marketing Stuff. We hope you enjoyed the nuggets that Aaron was dropping because he was dropping straight fire. Make sure that you do not miss an episode that we're dropping by hitting the subscribe button. You're going to want to do that. If you check in the show notes or the episode description, you can grab a PDF copy of some of the things that Aaron shared today. We can't wait for you to join us on the next episode. We'll continue to bring you the latest and greatest in marketing and content creation and videos. Thank you so much for listening. And until next time, stay out here winning, y'all.